Welcome to Dawn of a Story. This is more than a podcast. It's a place where we speak the truth, tell the stories that shape us, and honor the moments that made us who we are. I created the space because I believe storytelling is how we connect, how we heal, and how we remember who we are. Some stories are still being written. Some are full of laughter. Some have changed everything, but all of them matter. Whether it's my story or one of my guests, my hope is that you hear something that resonates, that reminds you that you are not alone and encourages you to tell your story too. So settle in because every story starts somewhere, and this one starts now. Thank you for tuning in and welcome to Dawn of a Story. I'm your host, Dawn Pascal. I'm so very grateful you decided to spend your time with me and my guest this week, Shannon LeI Gill. Every show we will be exploring a new theme. This week's theme is Written in the Stars. There are moments in life that feel less like coincidence and more like destiny, as if something greater has been guiding us all along. Today, we step into Written in the Stars, a conversation about how the cosmic blueprint above shapes the story we live below. It's about alignment, synchronicity, and the timeless pull of the universe on our journeys. So let me tell you a little about my guest. Shannon LeI Gill is a pioneering evolutionary and archetypal astrologer, blending ancient cosmology with emergent consciousness to guide transformative journeys. Rooted in sacred dance, Buddhist psychology, and frequency-based healing, her work activates the soul's design through astrology, ritual, and energy medicine. She is the co-founder of Astrom, the co-director of the Shift Foundation, and currently serves as the president of the Astrological Society of Austin. So without further ado, let's get started. Hi, Shannon. I'm so happy to
Hi,
see you.
Dawn. So happy to see you and to be here with you. Thank you for having
Thank
me.
you. Welcome to the show.
Thank
So
you.
I would really love to get deep into an astrological reading, but it's not about me. And you've done that several times for me before, and I'm grateful. This is all about you. So before we get into the stars, what's the story that led you here?
Wow. Here to this moment and to, yes, I think that's a very long story. uh, yeah, ancient traveling through many lifetimes and dimensions, but I know we don't have time for that. So, um, but there's some truth to that. I feel like at this moment on my own evolutionary journey, I have sort of arrived in a place where I feel out beyond the span of third dimensional time, which is the Shannon Gill suit that I'm wearing in this life. And so I would just say it's been a magical, very treacherous journey to get here. And I feel like that's my medicine, is that, I was sort of thrust into the underworld at a very young age in this particular incarnation. I can see now that that was a necessary component of my awakening and what I would frame as many initiations into understanding the complexity of reality. And specifically talking about the connection between the light and the dark.
Right.
So I, on the outset, looked like a very normal, well-adjusted, healthy, young little girl, but there was a lot of big movement behind the scenes. And so, as an astrologer, I kind of mark things in time based on the cycles. So at my Saturn opposition, so that's 14, right? So Saturn being cycles of 7, 14, 21, 28, right? Those are the times of our life where we hit a threshold of maturation and usually a crossroads of some kind. So at my around 13, 14, I lost my father and watched all of his amazing gay creative friends die of AIDS. So in that horrific time in the 80s,
Right.
that was very intimate experience for me, being that my father was one of the victims of that horrific time. So that sort of was my first sort of like thrust into the underworld. And what I know now is that he's sort of like he passed me the baton in a way. He was a Leo, so he was just a bright light, extremely creative. I have to say, being raised by a gay father is like no other. You know, he liked to take me shopping and do my hair and take me to fancy parties. And, you know, as an interior designer in Houston, he was very well known in all the magazines. So I got exposed to a very joyful, creative reality.
Right.
That is so deeply a part of who I am now, today, always. But the loss was the first, you know, sort of awakening into the harder aspects of life. And so continuing on my journey, my mother, her own very, very difficult life, it was an alcoholic. And so I was kind of on my own, really. And during that period that my father was passing, his sister, you know, had this agenda to embezzle my trust fund. So I was sort of like swept up by this side of my family with the intention of actually stealing my money.
Whoa.
So that was another big, you know, I thought, oh, I'm, you know, going to stick close to my dad's side of the family. And yet it ended up being more loss, more betrayals. So for any of you astrologers out there, I have 5 planets in the 8th house of Scorpio. So we know Scorpio is loss, betrayal, other people's money, all of those things, right? And so basically it just forced me to wake up really young and to start to find my way back to life. And what I learned is one of the more important things that I learned in that journey was the power of music, vibration, dance, and movement. So I had my spiritual awakening around my early 20s, I guess. And it set me on a path to, you know, to find myself again, to regain my sense of connection to life, because I was definitely depressed for many, many years and wandering and just kind of a mess. I won't get into some of that dark stuff. And when I went into college and I started studying music therapy, and I realized that there was something to that like, why would I cry whenever I'm listening to music?
Right.
You know, I spent a lot of time as a youth driving around in my MX-6, you know, smoking a little, you know what, with woofers in the back, just bassing. And it was just like, there was something in that release, and that was informing me. I mean, that was like 30 years ago. So it took me on the path to studying music therapy. But I realized though that, and I'd been in years of therapy, that I was still sort of a prisoner to my own thoughts of my mind. And so that was my next sort of journey. And I decided I need to learn about the levels of consciousness. And so I left music therapy school in Texas. I'm from Austin, Texas, by the way. And I have moved back. And I went to Boulder, Colorado, where I attended Naropa University, which is a Buddhist university. And that's where I ended up getting my degree in Buddhist psychology and studying dance music and art therapy. It's interesting as I'm like reflecting on telling my story. I've kind of come to a place in my life where I'm not so associated with all of my story so much anymore. So even to tell it, I'm like, gosh, that seems like another lifetime ago.
Wow.
But it's interesting to review, actually, even for myself at this point, because it is all relative to the alchemy of me today.
Right.
And so after college, I ended up going into another institution called the Archetypal Institute, where I got really immersed in alchemy and dream work and became a Jungian counselor. That's where I was introduced to astrology. And I remember it was my 30th birthday whenever I had my very first astrology reading. And I knew that day that I was to be an astrologer. I was already a counselor, already, you know, doing some good therapeutic work. But anybody that used to ever look at my chart as a young person and see my 8th house would just like gasp. be like, oh, and it made me kind of fear my life. It
Mhm.
made me kind of, with already having so much intensity in my childhood, it was like, there wasn't a real ease whenever I would think about that. And when I had my first astrology reading, it really pretty much changed my life forever. The founder of this school. And he said, wow, you are so powerful. Like he basically recontextualized my chart
Right.
into something that was really, um, yeah, just powerful and intentful. And he said, you're here to be a descent master. And I was like, oh, no, that sounded kind of interesting. And I didn't know, I don't think I know exactly what he meant back then. And now I surely do. But what we know about the eighth house of Scorpio, Scorpio is the dark mother.
Mhm.
Scorpio season is the fall when everything dies. So she rules that process of death and rebirth, of regeneration. We do that on a soul level, which is basically what I had been initiated in over and over as a child, is those soul descents into the underworld. Myth of Inanna, the hero's journey, right? So many times as a young person, those were my initiations into the depth of that process, because I was to be a way shower for other people through the difficulty, through that process of death and rebirth, through the evolution of consciousness, through that deeper soul realm. So I ended up getting all of that information downloaded at the Archetypal Academy. And then I went on and studied evolutionary astrology. And so that is sort of like all wrapped up in a package with me in a way. I feel like my life is in service to the evolution of consciousness as we stand at the cusp of this shifting of eras. As you mentioned in my bio, my partner and I, Russell, have a nonprofit, the Shift Foundation. I have a 0 degrees Aquarius ascendant in Western astrology. And so I've kind of felt like the poster child of the new age in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And, with Pluto grinding over it 5 times in the last 2 years, the good news is we're going to survive.
Right. Though sometimes we feel like we're not going to, but yes, in the end, we will.
Right. Right. Yes. Yes. And so, what to say? That Pluto journey really took me to my knees. So, this is kind of bringing us up to the current moment. Pluto moved into Aquarius a couple years ago, year and a half ago. And it was another, and I thought I was done going to the underworld. I was like, I thought I had graduated.
Right.
Wrong. But what I learned is that that's where the magic happens. That's where the alchemy happens. Does the caterpillar know it's going to be a butterfly when it's turning to mush in the chrysalis? Probably not.
Right.
Probably a little anxiety going on. Right. So I feel that I'm here to serve as an agent of evolution. And people that know me and know my work is like, I'm sent people that, oh, Shannon does the deep of the deep. Like, I think that I have a gift at getting people unstuck.
Mhm.
And in the last year or so, I've actually started integrating some very Aquarian technologies. And I actually work with frequency medicine, which is an integration of Royal Rife and Nikola Tesla. And I can scan and optimize people at a distance across the world.
That's
And
amazing.
right. Yeah. Yeah. So welcome to the Aquarian age. Like, we're here. So, as we all know, things are changing dramatically
Mhm.
and rapidly, and we have these incredible tools. And it's certainly not the same terrain that we used to live, which I'm sure you can attest to. We're all being charged with the responsibility to
Right.
do this deep inner alchemy to change the vibrational template of the collective consciousness so that we can start to exist in this higher vibration as one organism. Is the way I see the Aquarian age. We're all one organism and we're each the organs. And so I guess I would say that my life journey to get me to this point was in preparation for this moment on planet Earth, which I feel very strongly that we all chose this showdown. And so if we're going to do it, we might as well have fun doing it. So we
Right.
do a lot of dance. We do a lot of like really things what makes us feel happy? What makes us feel good? Because I really feel like we've arrived. I feel like the hardest part is over. And because we know that we're not just straddling the ages, we're straddling the dimensional states. The
Right.
way to obtain and maintain those higher dimensional states is through what makes us happy, what brings us joy. And so that brings me back to where I was driving around in my MX6 with my my woofers on,
Right. Right.
because it brings you to the present moment, and the vibration of music, is basically a highway to travel to those higher dimensional states. And there's other ways to achieve that, of course, but that's been my favorite way. That's been my go-to for my healing and my spiritual practice. And I have a teacher that is in Israel that is really initiated me into, actually, I would say initiated, I would say reactivated a remembrance in me from ancient temple dance. And so this is really my greatest passion at the moment, is that type of journeying in the body as the holy temple, where we can access states of bliss whenever we remove the obstacles to the obstruction of that flow. So I just got back from there, so I'm still a little bit lit up from that experience. So yeah, I
Wow.
guess that's, I hope that was okay to share. I feel like I talked a really long time.
No, okay to share. That was beyond amazing.
Oh,
And of course, and our viewers and listeners don't know, but I met Shannon through Astrology Hub. And when you were part of the inner circle for that given month, new moon, full moon cycle, I then reached out to you and I had several readings. And it was at a point in time, now looking back or thinking that you just shared your story, it was a time when I was going through something very deep and very, very dark and very transformative. And wow, spot on. I mean, if you were like creme de la creme person to pick to help me work
mm.
my way through that, I mean, beyond amazing. And what a transformative journey that you've been on. So starting with your first astrology reading, which I would say that's the moment when maybe everything started to click for you, to say, hey, you know what? This is the path that I'm gonna take and I'm gonna be on. I'm I'm blown away.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's a fun journey being me, I guess.
Well, it may not have been fun all those times that you were going through all of those deep, deep, dark transformational things,
Absolutely
but
not. Absolutely not. But would I change it? It's fun being me at this point. That's a nice place to arrive to. And
right.
so, yeah, I do feel that, we learn things along the way, and we don't have to learn them the hardest way once, and that's evolution in action.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So
Yeah.
would you say that the stars are a mirror or a map for us?
A mirror or a map? I would say both. I would say both, because we can track the stars, and it's this history of cycles, and we can, so that in that sense it's a map,
Mhm.
but we're not separate from the planets and the stars, so we're on the journey with them. So that's where they're a reflection.
Right, right.
Yeah, so it's really like a map of our soul that we're looking at.
What can the birth chart actually show us of the patterns that we carry? So you talked about eighth house, lots of planets, deep, dark transformation. If we know the eighth house, yes, we do. So what does the birth chart show us of the paths that we're supposed to take or the lessons that we're supposed to have throughout our life?
Right. So there's different systems of astrology. I integrate two that I love, and they work really well together: archetypal and evolutionary. So when I'm looking at a chart, I'm seeing different layers of the person. Your ruling archetypes is what we call them: the sun, the moon, the ascendant are the dominant energies, but I see them as sort of like your costume. It's like the clothes you're wearing,
Mhm.
because the true you is beneath the costume, which is your soul. So after we map out your ruling archetypal like outfit you have on, which is very important, we need to make sure that we're in alignment with the expression of our soul. Then we go into the evolutionary astrology aspect, which for me is like the base note. It's really why we're here. This is looking at the soul's evolution through the many incarnations. And when we look at that, we're looking at what we call the nodal axis or the destiny line. And this is where we can get some really helpful information about that shows up in the ways that we get stuck, like our patterns. Like, why do I end up keep repeating this thing? Why am I attracting the same old relationship? Well, it's because it's a karmic loop. And so this is where astrology through this lens can help us to identify, to give us guidance and information about something that can help us unravel it, that can help us to clean things up from the past, right? Do the work. What's the block? What's in the way? And that's the other thing the chart will show us is that it helps to give direction, specific direction around where to focus in order to clean up or rebalance or empower ourselves in certain ways so we can find our greatest alignment with our soul's intent, which is the nodal axis is 2 points of opposition. The past life is the south. Our dharma is the north. So we can kind of see in the chart too, our North Star is like, oh, our higher self laid this map out for us way before we even incarnated. And so it's truly invaluable to how deep it can guide us. And then also there's the transits, which is there's a season for everything. And so we can help to find right alignment and timing for the big important things and choices in our lives.
So, if you were to take all of that, obviously, you've probably done it a gazillion times, and apply it to your own birth chart to share with us today. So, what did you find in your own birth chart that revealed maybe how you saw yourself differently?
Um, that's a deep question. I think that,
We don't have to go that deep, or we can go that deep, whatever you
well,
want to
no,
do.
it's a good question, but yeah, it's just making me think deeply. I feel like because I've been sort of working with my astrology chart for so long, it's why I'm needing to think about it for a minute. I think that the biggest thing that stands out to me is that the recontextualization around the difficulties with all that eighth house, and all the loss and betrayal and traumas and,
Right.
but basically what I know now is that that was the fertile ground. The people that go the deepest and the darkest fly the highest. We live in a realm of duality. And that's where the magic happens. I mean, you've probably come across the myth of Inanna and her descent into the underworld
Mhm.
through the seven gates. We've been in the dark ages for thousands of years. And so those shocks when we wake up in the underworld or when some trauma or some storm shakes us and wakes us up, it's waking us up out of amnesia. It's waking us up out of apathy. It's waking us up out of repetitive patterns that keep us stuck in disconnection, playing into the whole matrix slave reality. So, unfortunately, humanity is a little lazy sometimes. And because we have been in this state of consciousness in the Pisces age now for a couple thousand years, where we have been asleep to the truth on every level,
Mhm.
most importantly, the truth of who we are, which is God consciousness creating and experiencing itself. We have a lot of the basis of my teachings, and I think this is why people gravitate towards me with some of the more difficulties, is because those are the things that are necessary to get us unstuck, to shake us up, to mobilize us to evolve. Because when we're comfortable all the time, we oftentimes don't grow,
Right.
we don't change. But when we have something really dramatic, we're forced to. And that whole, Inanna's descent into the underworld, the process of spiritual awakening is the removing of the mask, which is the ego persona, the false beliefs, the materialism, the addictions, the codependency, all of the things that come up in the human realm. And so it's where she's finally naked in the underworld and is greeted by her sister, the goddess Ereshkigal, and she kills her. That's actually the beginning of the truth because she's slicing through the facade. And so I think that my chart over time has helped me to trust, even in the darkest times, everything is actually always perfect. And we have a symphony of support behind us. So that would definitely be my answer on
Wow. No,
that one.
that's amazing. What do you say to someone who thinks that it's all woo-woo, if that's
Mhm.
the easiest way to describe it? It's a blueprint of your life. I absolutely know that, and I absolutely believe that, and I happen to be loving astrology my whole life since I was little, but that doesn't mean that that's why I believe it, because I love astrology. It's because I know that there is something definitely greater than us that is guiding us, and obviously that could be God, source, universe, whatever anybody believes, but there is definitely a greater program for us. And then we go through our motions every single day. So, what do you say to someone that doesn't believe that or thinks that it's just woo woo?
Mhm. Um, I feel like I have compassion, right? Because this was also a program to disconnect us from truth,
Hmm.
the dark ages, right? We couldn't be so easily controlled if we knew we had direct access to knowledge, so it was outlawed. But the powers that be had their astrologers.
Yeah, right,
Um, there's the famous saying, you don't have to believe in gravity. It just is.
right,
And I might challenge someone to do some research. I mean, astrology is all math.
right.
And at one time, it wasn't disconnected from astronomy. And so I understand that mindset. There's been so much programming and mind control throughout the church, for example, right?
Mhm.
But Russell, my partner, has actually a huge, beautiful body of research that shows that the Bible is actually an astrological treatise. I mean, it's woven throughout the Bible for those who have eyes and ears to see.
Right.
So I wouldn't try to push someone or anything like that. I would maybe challenge them to try it on, to look a little deeper. Definitely don't just read your horoscope in the magazine, because that's not helping astrology at all.
No, 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 no.
Yes.
So, how do the stars continually, how do you feel the stars continually guide us to evolve and grow?
Well, astrology is happening whether we're tuning into it or not, right? The energies that are coming from the planets aren't separate from us.
Mhm.
So whether you know that Mars is on your sun and all of a sudden you're extremely inspired and getting more things done or not, you're still getting things more done. you
Right.
know. However, you know, the masters that would always either have astrologers or follow astrology would know that you kind of have a leg up if you know what's going on, right?
Right.
And the power of astrology is that if you see a storm coming, you put on a raincoat. Or in my case, like with Pluto, right? Or if I have a client that's coming in, I'm like, whoa, they're going to have a really big, strong energy coming for them. If you know what the energy represents, you make an offering to it
Mhm.
so that it has a vessel to flow through. So with the Pluto's all about Scorpio. We talked about that's death and rebirth.
Mhm.
So I needed to accept that I need to go through some once in a lifetime changes. So I moved, healed a bunch of stuff that needed to be taken care of. I started some new practices. So I was like letting go of some things and birthing some things, right? Because otherwise you can just get whipped around by the energies. Yeah, so I think that attuning to the moving clock is just a way to find greater alignment with the cosmic dance.
How do you guide people and advise people to allow the change to happen?
It's major existential trust that we need right now. And I think that that's the foundation of it all, is that we're all being asked to trust and to surrender. We're not going back to the way it was, and actually things are going to continue to disintegrate. And this is where astrology becomes invaluable, because we can understand that this happens every 2,000 years.
Right.
And we're at this convergence moment on the planet where it's not just one age shifting, it's a 12,000 year yuga cycle. This is mind blowing. It's mind blowing, the power of this evolutionary moment, and that we are the way showers. So there's various ways to look at how to navigate, but the first being just even the awareness around the evolutionary arc that we're in and that we're in the cusp, that we can kind of trust that it's always chaotic whenever we're ending an era and birthing a new one. Birth is bloody. It's nonlinear, it's painful. And but that we're rising, we're moving into the golden ages, right? We're coming out of the density. And the Aquarian age, so again, this is where Aquarius is always going to be the thing that I'm going to point people to, because there's codes. We have left ourselves information, symbolism, metaphor, right? And so Aquarius is about the higher mind. Aquarius is about enlightenment. Aquarius is about frequency and vibration, and us remembering ourselves as one organism, us living as a tribe. And so you can kind of take these pieces and start to reorient your life into to being in alignment with more of the natural cycles and the natural ways, so that we can start to live organismically. I feel that a lot of the work is about bringing the light down into the body. It's about remembering our organic nature. We chose to be here, to be in human form. So it's not, for me, about so much about ascension, leaving and constellating somewhere up here. I love having those experiences, but really what this new earth template is about, bringing down those divine codes and living in this beautiful garden experience, this Garden of Eden, this our birthright. And so, as I mentioned before, one of the keys and the secrets is it's really all about frequency and vibration. It's about staying in the present moment, because if we worry about the past, that's not helpful or creative, right? We worry about the future, that's not actually going to help anything either. So if we stay in that, and this is where I'm so thankful for my Buddhist background, we stay in that ever present now, and we make every now the best we can. With really simple things, like if you're feeling heavy, having an off day, turn on some music, buy yourself some flowers, use aromatherapy, get your sunshine every single day, get your feet on the earth. We have to be connecting heaven to earth through our organic nature. If you're going through a really challenging time, like a plutonian, like one of those underworlds, get support, but also trust the process. Something's leaving to create space for something new.
Right.
And once we attune our frequencies to that higher vibrational state, because again, as an evolutionary astrologer, that's the whole intention, is the evolution of consciousness. So we know we have different dimensions of consciousness. The third dimension is the matrix, the hell realm, basically. Fourth dimension is where we're waking up and we're doing all of our work, and we're kind of we're like, wow, this is so much more than this. And, oh man, I got a lot of work to do. And then the fifth dimension is really when we come online with our God self, our Christ consciousness. And then we have access to unlimited support, unlimited creativity, unlimited abundance. We don't have to abide by the third dimensional laws. Things actually flow in synchronistic ways, in magical ways, quantum speed. And I can speak from experience. I have come out of that last underworld Pluto journey, and I'm in this really beautiful, surreal manifestation of some new projects that literally fell in my lap.
Wow.
And that's not something that's logical, really, like the way that, and really, so this is where we start getting into this multidimensional reality. There's so much more going on. There's so much more out there. And it becomes like an adventure. It becomes really fun, where every day, everything, there's a sign here, a sign there, and everything feels like it's a symphony working in your favor, because it is.
Right.
We just have to realize we're coming out of density. We're coming out of the dark ages, and it's very, very biological. The good news is that our genes are actually mutating. Like, in Gene Keys, Richard Rudd talks about that all the time, that we're between now and 2027, our whole genetics are going to change to where we have access to our telepathy and we're coming back online with our unit of consciousness. Living from heart coherence is very important. Staying out of the narrative, staying out of the division, all the mind control programs.
Right.
Anytime we're pointing the finger at a politician or a country or our neighbor or whoever we think is, the evil doer, we're asleep in the Pisces age. The two fish are still swimming in opposite directions, asleep to the truth, which is there's only one. There's only one mind. There's only one consciousness. And also to trust that there is intelligence in the darkness. So, is there evil out there? Yes, there is. Right?
Mhm. Right.
However, what Russell always says, the right and the left hand of God, right? Sometimes we have to have something really traumatic and chaotic, as we've talked about. I mean, how the hell are we going to move into a whole new era, new age, if we aren't globally shaken up and
Right.
brought to our knees?
Right.
So, understanding some of these alchemical laws, I feel like is gold, is so important so that we can trust. Like I've told my kids since they were little, you can't have summer all year.
Right. Right.
You have to have winter.
Right.
Well, we're going through a global dark death so that we can be reborn as a new humanity, the new human actually coming online, which is our enlightened state, which is the Aquarian way, which has to do with the synthesis or the unification of duality back into the one and starting to constellate as this organismic consciousness.
I always thought as I have gone through transformations and position changes and job changes and career changes and changes, et cetera, I always thought of the analogy of when you hit bottom to whatever depth that bottom is, you finally have good footing to be able to bounce yourself back up again. So that was always my way of making myself feel better.
Yeah, I love it. You're speaking my language.
Thank you. Thank you. Shannon, if so you talked about how your 30-year-old self had that astrology reading. So if you didn't have that reading, do you think that your life and journey would have been different?
And this is that fate and free will thing again, huh?
A little bit, maybe a little bit.
Of course. I mean, I think every moment we have a choice, but looking back, we're always going to say, "Oh, that was meant to be." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So this is that both and duality thing. I mean, it's part of the mystery. I mean, on a soul level, I think that my soul would have still meandered down and figured out these codes because I feel like I'm on mission. According to galactic history, humanity has destroyed itself 4 times. And this is the 5th incarnation of Earth. So on a soul level, I remember one of those desecrations of humanity, which I feel like is why I have come back with such a strong passion and commitment to ushering in the shift with this being like cheerleader, like we're going to survive this time. We've got this,
Right.
because I feel like it's something that's just really, really penetrated me on a deep level. So I think I would have probably found my way to astrology. Yeah.
Yeah, well, and in knowing you and in speaking with you, and not just today, on many other occasions when I had readings and we had an opportunity to chat, I absolutely, of course, I believe that. As Anne Wortley would say, if it's in your chart, it's in your heart. You're eventually going to get there. I mean, I was a 5-year-old that watched The Galloping Gourmet on TV, and I didn't go to cooking school, and I went on to have a HR financial services career, and then finally opened up a bakery. So yeah, if it's there, you'll eventually get to it. I
I
absolutely
think so.
believe that.
I think so. And if not this lifetime, you get to try it again.
Right, right.
I
So
mean,
what were you going to say?
oh, I just heard that old saying. I mean, so cliche, follow your bliss. Like, it's just so true. Like, what lights you up,
Yeah.
and for you, there was so much around cooking and food and all that Taurus stuff.
Yeah, deliciousness. And that's the idea of this new community now. I was blessed to have a community that I was able to provide yummy, delicious things for people to eat. And hopefully now I create a community that has luscious, delicious things that people listen to, or a story that makes them feel seen or heard or comforted or guided or felt like they're not alone in whatever journey it is at whatever stage of life they're on. So that's how this podcast came about. And I'm grateful to you and friends like you and all of the other wonderful people that I know in my life that have stepped forward and said, "Yeah, I'll absolutely be on and I'll talk about my stories." So I'm beyond grateful that you would give me your time and that you would share your story with me and with everyone.
Oh, well, it's an honor. I feel very just proud to be sort of like your cheerleader and like your, sort of like mentoring. You can do this. You've
Yeah.
got this. You had a planet waxing over your ascendant there forever too. And I was just like, we got to just get through this portal. I know I can see you on the other side.
Right. Right. No. No, absolutely. And you absolutely have been a cheerleader. And yeah, and I feel like I'm finally like this all was birth out of happiness. I
No.
sat in sadness for a really long time. I sat in sadness for about 5 years. And
Yeah.
when I finally released and let everything go in really the beginning of this year, this sort of bubbled up from, wow, oh my God, I'm finally happy. Yeah.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. Yeah.
The, the
Woohoo.
technology of happiness.
Yes, absolutely. So, Shannon, before we go, I ask every guest the same question because I believe the stories we leave behind say so much about how we showed up in this world. So, what is one story, big or small, that you hope people remember you for?
Trusting the fall, trusting the journey to the underworld and back, that there's so many gems to be found, in the soil. That's where the magic happens, in the compost of winter. And that there's nothing wrong with you. And also that we don't have to take it so personally, I think, like we're healing our maternal and paternal lineage back through thousands of years of disconnection from rooted in the original wound of separation, the great illusion of them all, right?
Right.
So, like deep compassion, I feel like I really had to extend that to myself. Um, because sometimes whenever you're in those underworld experiences, you're in survival mode. And I didn't make the best choices. I was just like, because I was just in that space of like, whatever I could do to just hang on. So
Right.
yeah, I guess I would just say like trust the phoenix, that the phoenix is coming. Sagittarius follows Scorpio for a reason. So we don't get enlightened until we've been initiated.
Right.
We don't want a flat line. We don't want to have an apathetic life, right? So be happy whenever things get a little bit rocky. Be like, all right, we're going up. We're shaking off the skin. This is the year of the snake in Chinese astrology, right? This is a transition year for all of us. We're at the eye of the needle, and not everybody's going to make it through. That's okay. We're eternal.
Wow.
So, yeah, I really trust and believe that the harder things in our lives are sometimes the most important. It's like coal to diamonds. So to trust the process, get some support, look at your astrology chart. That's the most important thing, because not only do you find out all the gems and all the fun stuff, but more importantly, you find out when the hard stuff ends. This will be over in February.
Right. Right. You are beyond insightful. And I, again, can't really thank you enough for helping me through a lot of heartache.
Mm.
Thank
Such
you.
an honor. Oh my gosh.
Thank you.
So happy to be sitting here with you.
I'm grateful and I'm honored. So I want to thank you, please, again. I could say thank you 1,000 times for being part of the story today. And I want to thank everyone for tuning into this episode of Dawn of a Story. If you heard something today that moved you, made you laugh, or made you think, share it with someone you love. Please like and subscribe to the show. And if you're feeling brave, I'd love to hear your story by commenting below. It helps other story lovers find us too. If you're interested in reaching out to Shannon, which I strongly suggest, you can reach her through her website, shannonleigill.com. And I will also put that in the show notes. Until next time, keep listening, keep sharing, and keep telling your story. Thank you, Shannon, so much. Thank you. This was wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you so much.